all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
And welcome into the John Nabors Show here live from the Natty State Sports Studios. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I am your host, John Nabors, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon, as we got plenty of things to talk about today. Actually have some football news too, and we'll get into some other of the nonsense that goes along with it. Well, let's jump right into the big news going on with Razorback football. I wouldn't say that there's anything like just crazy, but it is still pretty interesting because the SEC had officially announced the game time window schedule for the upcoming Razorback football season. Well, all the SEC teams, but it's unique because this has never happened before. Beforehand, you had to wait 2 weeks in advance to even know what time you were playing, which I always felt like it was so frustrating, but it made sense because Arkansas and all the SEC teams always had to wait on CBS. CBS was going to get first choice. They were going to get the game of the week, or at least the game that they felt was best. And they would play that game, and then after that was selected, then the rest of the SEC teams would kind of follow in suit. Well, unfortunately, and it still pains me inside, that Arkansas and the SEC will no longer be featured on CBS. I mean, it sucks, first off. I just, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do not being able to watch the best game each and every week out of the SEC and, hearing the startup. And then, it's just a great theme song. So I hate that. And there's nothing against ESPN because it does make it easier when it's across their family of networks to be able to have more access to the games and to the channels. But still, it's just going to be something sad about it no longer being on CBS. So that's why you are able to have these games and these schedules and these windows come out so far in advance. Now, these are not exact times, mind you. They are at least ballpark estimates, but I'll take that. It's better than nothing. It's better than, just having to wait 2 weeks out. And if somebody who's traveling or if you're someone who's trying to plan a tailgate and nobody wants to tailgate at 11 a.m. games, you can be able to plan accordingly or at least have a good idea of it. So Arkansas put out this official graphic, and here are the schedules and windows. So as of right now, we already knew the times for the very first 3 games of the Razorback football season. UAPB moved from a Saturday to a Thursday night, and that game's going to be played at 6:30 p.m. in Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium, and it's going to be on ESPNU. Fine with that. Great with that. Shouldn't be as hot. Let's hope not, at least. Awesome. And then when Arkansas goes on the road the very next Saturday against Oklahoma State, that game is going to be on ABC, so it's going to be on the big network, and that game is going to be at 11 a.m. Already knew that. I know I just talked about 11 a.m. games, and I really hate 11 a.m. games. But if you're going to go on the road, if you're going to play a road team, in my opinion, the best games to have at 11 a.m. are always going to be road games. So it's going to be hot as balls. It's going to be so hot. It's going to be hot no matter what, but there's no the sun will go down. No, the sun is going to be on you the entire game. So plan accordingly for that. But that game's going to be at 11 a.m. and ABC already knew that. And then the next week, when you return home to Fayetteville, you have UAB, September 14th. It's that Saturday back in Fayetteville. Your first game in Fayetteville of the year. That's on the SEC Network. And I feel like this is so interesting. It's at 3:15, which I'm actually okay with. I like the mid-afternoon games, 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever, especially if it's a big game, which this one's not. But for 3:15 to be the time, not 3, not 3:30, 3:15, I think is kind of funny and interesting. But still, we already knew those times. We already knew how that was going to happen. And that kind of places it and sets it stone. Now, after this, you're going to see, at least on the graphic here, a bunch of different words next to those particular games. And as you see on there in the bottom, there's the key that tells you what that means in those particular games and in those game windows. So the Auburn game, the very first SEC game of the year, it's not like none of these are on channels unless I say otherwise. They're still to be announced. But the Arkansas-Auburn game, the one that will be played in Auburn, Alabama, is part of the flex window. And what that means is that the game will have a start time between 2:30 and 7 p.m. Central Time. So no matter what, that Auburn game is going to be not an 11 a.m. game. It's going to be either a mid-afternoon or a night game. So that one makes sense. Again, road games, I'd rather them be at 11 a.m., but that's not going to happen. So instead, we're just going to have to deal with that, and it's going to be a night game or at least an afternoon game at Auburn, so I'm sure it'll be a pretty rowdy crowd. Now, the game in Arlington that you're going to be going off against Texas A&M, final game in Arlington between these two opponents, thank goodness. This one is part of the afternoon game window. Now, the afternoon game window has a start time between 2:30 and 3:30. So that one's a little bit more specific. It's an hour difference. So no matter what, that Texas A&M game in Arlington is going to be afternoon. It's not going to be 11 a.m. It's not going to be 6 p.m. and it's not going to be 8 p.m. I don't know if anybody remembers. I believe it was 2016 that the 8 p.m. game happened down there in Arlington. That was miserable. Like, after experiencing that, which, of course, Arkansas lost, so maybe that went in part of it. But there is something different about an 8 p.m. kickoff against, like, a major opponent. Because if you think about it, by the time halftime's over, it's almost 11 o'clock in some cases, or at least 10:30. That's a late game. So being in an afternoon, so it's also nice because some of you drive from the Central Arkansas area. I know Little Rock is about 4.5 hours to Arlington if you make that drive. So not saying everybody would do this, but if you're truly just going down for the game, it makes it a little bit easier for you where you can wake up fairly early in the morning, like wake up leave at like 8 a.m. and get down there in time for the game. And then once the game over, drive back and you still be home at a reasonable hour if you wanted to do that. So afternoon game there against Texas A&M. Now, your first SEC home game against Tennessee on October 5th, that is going to be part of the flex schedule, which I love because that's either going to be a 2:30 game or a 7 p.m. game. So for those of you who like to go out there and tailgate for big SEC games or big games in general, that is going to be the time that would probably be best served. Hopefully Arkansas is having a decent year, or at least a year to keep you still interested, because that's my fear is that by the time there's a chance, I'm not saying it'll happen, but there's a chance that by the time the first SEC home game rolls around, people are already pissed off and not wanting to go to games, which is really unfortunate. But let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope Arkansas is still making it interesting by that point. And that game is going to be either at 2:30 or 7 p.m. So it's going to be another afternoon game or night game there in Fayetteville against Tennessee. I am all for that. We'll keep the 11 a.m. games on the road side of things away from Fayetteville and have afternoon night games at Fayetteville whenever you can. All right, so you have that. Then you have LSU 2 weeks later because you hit the bye week. LSU in Fayetteville, and that game is already set for night. It's going to start between either 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. So forget the afternoons, forget the mid-afternoons or anything like that. You can bet your bottom dollar guaranteed that Arkansas and LSU, the battle of the Golden Boot, obviously college football's greatest and most intense rivalry, that game will be at night. I think that's fitting. That's the way it should be. And when I kind of went through the thing of seeing the chances of Arkansas beating LSU, I'm not saying that, now it's a night game, it's going to be that means they're winning. But when you have 2 weeks to prepare for LSU in a rivalry game, and if your season's still going pretty well, and you get it at night, that atmosphere is going to be pretty electric because it's still at that point in time on October 19th. I mean, weather's unpredictable, but it's still at that point in time where it's not too hot, not too cold. It is a time frame where it's, maybe by the time at night hits, it's in the mid 60s. It could potentially be perfect weather for that game. And for the tailgating all day long, potentially could be perfect. I mean, there's nothing better than the fall in Northwest Arkansas with all the trees changing and everything. So, I mean, listen, we're all excited about the games and, the teams that they play. We'll see how that actually goes down and how that actually works out. But as far as just knowing what we know and predicting what we can predict, the elements surrounding the game is always very important. And I believe that the LSU game is going to be set up to where it's going to be the best, most electric, perfect weather, perfect setup, perfect situation for Arkansas to be able to take that Golden Boot back. If Arkansas can't find a way to beat LSU or at least compete against LSU in this game, I don't know what else they need. Again, you get a bye week. You're coming off a bye week to play LSU. It's at home. It's at night. The weather's gorgeous. Hopefully Arkansas is doing well enough again to keep people interested, which I think it will be going on. But even if they're not, even if they're still struggling, even if they're not great, I think that there'll still be reasons to have just a ton of people there. Like maybe it's one of those deals that Arkansas, even in the games they lost, it was really close and they fought hard. Like maybe that's the case, but still, I think that at that point in time, Arkansas's really got something going on for them, and hopefully they end up taking care of business. But I think that has the potential to be the best atmosphere of the year in Fayetteville. And we'll talk more about the schedule and continue on here in just a second. But folks, I got to tell you about our friends over at L. Jennings Law. Just like in sports, folks, preparation is key. And at L. Jennings Law, they understand that more than anybody, specializing in estate planning, including crucial documents like trust, wills, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, they ensure that your family is protected and provided for no matter what comes your way. So don't leave your future for chance. Contact L. Jennings today and create a plan that is comprehensive as it is comforting. They are experts in what they do, and you can call them today at 501-501-WILL. That's 501-501-9455. You can also check them out on their website, ljenningslaw.com. Great people, great Razorback fans, and always looking to help out those who are in need and in need of getting the best type of attorneys when it comes to everything in the court of law, especially with trusting in them with trust, business planning, and elder law. Again, 501-501-WILL. That's 501-501-9455. It is L. Jennings Law. All right, so continuing on with the schedule here. We talked about LSU and how that's going to be a night game. It's going to be electric. And then the next game, you go on the road to Mississippi State. And boy, I tell you, Chuck, this has about everything. I mean, you could have looked at the schedule and saw this game and be like, yep, that is going to be an 11 a.m. game right there if I've ever seen it. And guess what? It is part of the early window, which honestly, this is the first game of the season that Arkansas has been a part of the early window. And that game is going to be either at 11 a.m. or noon. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Give me all the early games on the road. I feel, not saying it always goes this way, but I feel 11 a.m. games benefit a road team more than a home team. The atmospheres usually are not as electric. It's usually not as well attended. It's usually, not a high energy game, which in theory would and should benefit those who are on the road. Again, I don't want to put guarantees on it, but I still feel like that could be a distinct possibility. So yeah, that one had 11 a.m. written all over it from the get-go, and that's not surprising that that's going to be an 11 a.m. game, and I'm early, and I'm all for it for the early game. But what I'm not for is the early game against Ole Miss. That means that game's going to be at 11 a.m. or noon. I don't like that. This game has proven time and time, and I'll say this is probably the first game that I don't like the time. So give flowers where flowers are due. But I felt like at this point in time, Arkansas and Ole Miss, I'm not saying it's the greatest rivalry. I'm not saying that it's a game that is better than Alabama LSU or whatever. Like, it's not to that level. But anybody who knows anything about the SEC knows that Arkansas and Ole Miss is kooky. It's insane. This game, every single year, is bananas. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen in any of these games. Like, think back in your own mind, folks. Think back to any Arkansas Ole Miss game in the history of these opponents where you have felt like you knew what was going to happen. All right? You're going to the game back, hey, I think we're going to win, or, oh, I think we're going to lose. And how many times, obviously it's just not as simple as that. You know kind of how it may go, but how many times has that actually come to fruition? Like last year, I remember going to the game like, man, Arkansas, that this might be their chance to be able to score offensively because Ole Miss's defense has struggled all year long up to that point. And it's going to be a shootout because Ole Miss has an offense that's just explosive and is scoring at will on people. That's what I thought. I thought Arkansas would still lose, but I was like, maybe this is the time that the offense finally gets going. Well, guess what happened? Yes, Arkansas lost, but they lost 27-20. the Ole Miss offense looked about as pedestrian as it did all year long at night there in Oxford, and Arkansas could not score. That's what that game happened. The year before that, in Fayetteville, Arkansas blew the doors off of Ole Miss. Arkansas did not have one blowout victory all year long. Not one. Not one. Except for, actually, I don't know. Yeah, because Cincinnati was not a blowout game at the beginning. You did not blow out Missouri State, so it definitely wasn't that. The point is, every game was close, and the Ole Miss game, for some unexplicable reason, was blowout city in your favor. The year before that, Arkansas's defense was pretty good, probably as good as it's been under Sam Pittman. Hadn't given up a whole lot of points. It stopped some good offenses, but both Arkansas and Ole Miss was just trading blows. KJ Jefferson had 6 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 3 rushing. Matt Corral went crazy, and Arkansas lost on a right decision to go for 2-point conversion after scoring the go-ahead touchdown or the game-tying touchdown at the end of regulation. So, and then the year before that, 6 picks from Matt Corral. I know I went through a lot of games. You guys know all the history, but my point is that game always is as entertaining as any game, or at least as unpredictable as any game in the SEC each and every year. Like, if Arkansas is sitting at how many games is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Arkansas is sitting at 2-6, 3-5 at that point, and Ole Miss is undefeated, or they'll say at 6-0 or 5-1 or something like that. I guess it would be 8 games, so they could be 8-0 at that point in time. Doesn't matter. I could see Arkansas winning, even though on paper they shouldn't, even though Arkansas's season has not gone great, and Ole Miss is looking like they could be in full control of the SEC and possibly going to the SEC championship game for the first time ever. And then Arkansas wins. Could totally see that happening. But I could also see the opposite, where Arkansas is actually having a really good year. Really good year. Maybe they're sitting at 6-2, shocking everybody. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is great. And Ole Miss, they're not living up to the expectation. They're only sitting at 4-4. And then Ole Miss wins. None of that would surprise me, but I hate that this game's at 11 a.m. It doesn't deserve to be at 11 a.m. It deserves to be at night, or at least in the afternoon, because of how crazy it is. And I think that the SEC dropped the ball on that one. Now, I would say that's the most egregious game here on the schedule when it comes to scheduling and timing until the very next home game, where after you play Ole Miss, you get a bye week, and then you play Texas. Last time you played Texas in Fayetteville, I am pretty sure that you could have done anything you wanted to the Longhorns, and they weren't going to beat you that day. The defense was incredible. The rushing attack was perfect. KJ Jefferson was awesome. Traylon Burks went off on him. I mean, that was about as fun and as great of a game, home game especially, that Arkansas has ever been a part of, at least in the Sam Pittman era. And everyone's excited about having this game back because it's tossing up to the old rivalries and then, the old Southwest Conference. And I gave a lot of praise and a lot of credit to the SEC and to everybody involved and Greg Sankey of making this game, this rivalry, be renewed and be something that Arkansas was also given the first game at home for this. I applauded them. But this game's at 11 a.m. No, it's not a flex. It's not afternoon. It's not even early. It's straight up 11 a.m. It's either going to be on ABC or ESPN. So I guess the trade-off there is at least you get to be on one of the main networks there as part of the ESPN family. But your final SEC home game against Texas, the very first year that they've been in the conference, is at 11 a.m. See, that sucks. That sucks. I'm going to complain no matter what, so that's just the way it goes. That's who I am. That's what I do. But you can't sit there and tell me that you give Arkansas, with their 2 final SEC home games, and what will arguably be, which we just went off about why that Arkansas-Ole Miss game is always so insane, but you give both of those times, both those time frames, either 11 a.m. or noon for Ole Miss and then 11 a.m. for Texas. That's criminal. That's sad. Because my fear is, this is where it comes into play of why having the schedule windows are great, but also why it kind of sucks, is because what if, and you could use any team for this example, but what if both of these teams were like undefeated going into this game. You'd say, well, I mean, you're on ABC, ESPN. That's a valuable time slot. Right after college game day ends, it's going to be that game. Yeah, but nobody, and I mean nobody, wants any great game to be at 11 a.m. or noon. Maybe TV does, but nobody else. And I think that this game, it would be one thing if you also made Ole Miss a night game or an afternoon game even. But to give Arkansas back-to-back home games at 11 a.m., that sucks. That's unfortunate, and I really, really, really wish they did not do that. It's something that would have been nice to have at least in an afternoon, but, for this type of game, it needs to be like that night game that they had in Fayetteville in 2021 against Texas. That was perfect, like chef's kiss perfect. Not only because Arkansas beat their brains in, but it was at 6 p.m. Tailgating all day. It's still warm outside. People were fired up. You're just coming off the COVID year where we couldn't have a full stadium. So it was the first time, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was the first time that Razorback Stadium after the North End Zone expansion was actually full. Because Lord knows it wasn't under Chad Morris. And so now to follow that up and knowing how great of an atmosphere that was, knowing how great of a game it was, knowing the type of atmosphere that it can make, that's what you get, 11 a.m. Not a fan of it. I feel bad for the fans themselves because, listen, if Arkansas wins, it'll be great still, no matter what time the game is at. But if Arkansas wins, it's like, man, just the energy and the atmosphere wouldn't be as great. Because there is nothing better than a night game. We all know that. There's nothing better than a night game in baseball. Like, we know Arkansas and the SEC baseball, a lot of times they play Saturday and Sunday in the middle of the day. But, when you get that random Saturday night game, like at 6 p.m., and it's under the lights, there's something electric and atmospheric about that. Basketball, I think, is the only exception because obviously it's indoors. But even then, though, there's something fun about a night game. Some of Arkansas's best games, best moments have been at night, usually during the week. Qualls putback dunk was at night. I think it was an 8 p.m. game even. When Arkansas beat Auburn, they were number one. That was a night game on a Tuesday. When Arkansas beat Duke, that was a night game on a Wednesday. But then Saturdays are kind of like, yeah, night games can be all well and good, but most people love that early mid-afternoon, like that 1 p.m. slot. That's usually where it goes to. But the point is, Arkansas and Texas being at 11 a.m. sucks. And it sucks for the fans, and I wish that wasn't the case, but can't make everybody happy in this conference. Just wish one of the final two games in Fayetteville would have been like at night. But I guess if you want to put the silver linings on it, maybe it won't be as cold because it's during the day, because around early mid-November, it does get a little bit nippy. So, small miracles, right? Silver linings, little victories. So that game is going to be at 11 a.m. on ABC or ESPN. And finally, rounding out the list, Louisiana Tech, your final home game. And that one's going to be played in Fayetteville on November 23rd. So it's funny. This game is to be announced, the timing-wise. My guess is it'll probably be a night game because it is going to be on SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus. It is not going to be on actual TV, which some of you bring this up, and I'm pretty sure this is still the case. But each and every year in football season, you have to have one game streaming. One game has to be on a stream. And I think that one was the one that's selected. Because if it wasn't that one, it would have been the UAPB game to start the season. But by moving that to Thursday night, you get to be on TV, you get to be one of the first major college football teams that play on a college football night there on a Thursday night. And so I have no idea when that is. And I don't think it really matters. I don't think it cares. That game is going to be interesting just because the attendance is going to say everything about everything. How did your year go? It's not a great opponent, but you're getting towards the end of the season. It's the final home game. Well, if you are fighting for something, if you are at that 6-7 win mark by that point, which I think would be an incredible run and an incredible year, I think the crowd, of course, will be a lot better. But if you're sitting there and it's been a rough go and you're not bowl eligible and you may never get bowl eligible, and you don't feel good about it and whatnot, and if it is like an 11 a.m. game, which, man, that'd be 3 11 a.m. games in a row. I don't think they would do that to Arkansas, hopefully not. putting that on the networks of live streams. But still, whatever. That game is just going to dictate as far as we just get this over with and let's get to the final game. And that is the final game at home. And then you go on the road to finish the season on the road against Missouri. That game is going to be on November 30th. That is not given a time just yet, which, again, this game was almost always, whether it was LSU or Missouri, I shouldn't say almost always, but more often than not, it was on CBS. And it was almost like a pity CBS game. Because when Arkansas, Missouri got this game, they're like, well, no one wants to watch this game anyways. We know. But we'd like to throw them a bone, put them on the CBS game at 1 p.m. Maybe we can get some people to watch then. So that's not going to be the case anymore. And it's going to be on a Saturday. It's not going to be on Black Friday. It's going to be on Saturday. So does that change anything? What does that mean? What does that do? No clue. But yay. So there you have it. That's the schedule and the schedule window. So plan accordingly if you're a Razorback fan. Again, great game, great Tennessee and LSU. Great night atmosphere. Is going to be great setup. I love having the Mississippi State game at 11 a.m. That one deserves it. I even love the A&M game being at the 2:30, 3:30 spot. I think that's ideal too. But the final two home games in the SEC, Ole Miss and Texas being in a morning game or a noon game, doesn't matter. Same difference. It's pretty criminal, pretty disappointing, and honestly, pretty on brand if you're a Razorback fan because you're kind of used to all that stuff happening. At least I have been. But we're going to continue on the conversation here just a little bit, folks. But I got to tell you about our friends over at Superior Contracting and Development here in the state of Arkansas. Listen, we all know that during this time frame, we're all going to be trying to do different things with our homes. Maybe we're wanting to expand. Maybe we're wanting to change a little thing as far as the look and feel of everything. Well, this is your opportunity to do so because they are licensed residential and commercial contractors specializing in all aspects of home building and remodeling, and they handle everything from fencing to drainage to additions and remodeling of your existing structure, all the way to land development and ground-up construction. So call us for all of your interior and exterior construction remodeling needs, and you can do so at 501-453-3053. That's 501-453-3053. You can also check out their website at superiorcontractingar.com. That's superiorcontractingar.com. But when it comes to anything, whether it's in building a new pool, fencing, remodeling your home, changing some room styles and all of that, do it with Superior Contracting and Development at 501-453-3053.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
Well, Razorback basketball fans, it's kind of fun, isn't it? Always talking about Razorback basketball and some of the fun and some of the greatness that's been going on. I mean, I know it's been quite a while time that John Calipari has been hired. In fact, I was even talking to somebody who is one of the listeners and followers of what we do here at Natty State Sports. And I laughed because they told me, they're like, I rewatched the entire live stream that you guys did of the John Calipari process that Sunday night when it was being reported that he was taking the job, and then just the things that came along with it. And I laughed about it because I'm like, man, that was a fun night. But it just shows you, again, the excitement. If there was ever excitement in a sport, it's basketball, far and away. I think football, there is maybe more than I give credit for. Maybe not as much as you would like, but there's still plenty to be excited about, at least in theory. And also in baseball, because it's so fresh of a very disappointing end to the season. I wouldn't say it's people get excited about it, but people are just really disappointed by it. They're like, okay, well, you can keep having these great regular seasons, but until you actually do something in it in the postseason, none of it's going to matter. But basketball is where it's all at, and the excitement is still at a fever pitch. And I love anytime that on social media, the official Razorback basketball Twitter account, Instagram account, whatever it is, puts up different stuff, any sort of content that can be had, pictures, videos, memes, whatever it is. And everybody on the Razorback basketball social media site put up this little picture here. And all it is talking about the transfer class as well as the recruiting class and where it ranks. It says basically flat out Arkansas, #1 transfer class in the country and the #6 recruiting class in the country. right there where it stands, those are 8 players. 8 players that you have right there. And Trevin Brazil's not even listed because that's the thing I've always wondered about it. It's you can't consider it a transfer if they were at the school they were at the year before, right? They're returning to school, even though they entered into the portal. Could that count? I think it should. I think it should count. I think if you went into the portal and you came back out and you're like, yeah, you know what? I actually do want to go into the back to the school that I was at. I think it should count, but it's not here. But either way, this is the transfer class and recruiting class that they have coming in. And I know it's, still so early, and who knows, maybe a little bit is Photoshop and graphic and everything, but it's pretty wild looking at that picture because we all know just seeing John Calipari, he's not in the picture, but just seeing John Calipari out and about wearing Razorback gear where he goes, I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to that. I don't know if I'm ever going to be back and just be like, yeah, that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal, especially with the red, which he looks great in red. Don't get me wrong, but he's just worn blue so long. It just is a bit different look, but still looking at that group right there. First off, I think Final Four at least, right? But also how telling it is, just in a friendly reminder. It's different now, boys. This is a different animal. This is a whole different thing. It's a different era. Because we know that there's so many cases, like from us, when he was here at Arkansas, there was a lot of turnover. There were a lot of new players that joined onto the rosters and everything. But I always felt like there was at least some continuity from the year before. Some more so than others, but some. You think back after his first year, he took over. He basically had all Mike Anderson's players. The next year, he still had some other players from that team. Connor Vanover, I know he didn't play his first year, but he was on the team. You had a guy like Desi Sills still on the team who played that next season. So yeah, it's like a little bit of continuity. Again, I don't know how long it went, but you didn't have to rely on that much because it was essentially understood that, hey, this is going to be the first full-time, full class, full everything that Muss has been able to put together himself. And he had a great recruiting class with freshmen. And he got all the big-time kids from Arkansas, and especially the most important ones. He had Moses Moody come in. He had KK Robinson. He had Jalen Williams, and he had Devo Davis. It's amazing what happens to Razorback athletics in particular years whenever you're able to get a lot of high-quality players to come out of the state at the same time, but also be able to get them to play together at Arkansas. I know KK Robinson didn't pan out, which is crazy because he was one of the higher recruited guys or highly regarded guys of that group. But you got everybody else, and those were all true freshmen. And then you went to the portal and you got in some key pieces, guy like Justin Smith and Jalen Tate, who really made a difference on that team. And then kind of plugged in place some of the other guys too. And then the next year, even though you lost some players, you still had Devo Davis. You still had Jalen Williams. You still had J.D. Note. He was another guy that was on the team but just didn't play in Muss's first year. But you had J.D. Note. You had Connor Vanover again, still on the team. Still pieces there. And then even the next year, you had Devo Davis. That was something that he was entering into his junior year. But you had Devo Davis. You had, I guess, was that? No, that couldn't have been it. That may have been the one that was like the most shorthanded one. And then the next year, we know you had one of the Mitchell twins this past year with Makai, and then Devo, and then also Trevin Brazil. So my point is that, we've seen turnover happen on rosters before. It's not uncommon, especially at a place like Arkansas, especially over the past few years and the way things have gone. But this is going to be the first time where even Brazil was on the team last year, and he was on the team year before, but because of injuries, because of sitting out and everything, it's still not the same because I didn't even mention the staff. So many years, year after year, the staff was the same. The GAs, the trainers. Some guys have still stayed on, like Riley. Love Riley. He stayed on. Ronnie Brewer stays on. So that's awesome. But it's going to be a whole new staff. It's going to be a whole new approach. It's going to be a whole new way to cover it. Because I feel like with Calipari, he's at least in a position to where he'll open up practices a little bit more for the media. We may not have the access to him, but we'll have access to the team maybe a little bit more, handling it like a pro locker room, which will be nice. So it's just amazing how things are just going to change for the good, not for the bad, but for the good. I'm appreciative of the way that Cal's handled everything. I'm appreciative of, the work that he's put in so far. And let's be honest, folks, it's exciting to have John Calipari, but it would not be near as exciting if he did not have the great, highly ranked players that he's bringing in. Like right there, that graphic is a flex. We talked about that a few weeks ago about John Calipari and his flexing. He loves to flex, and I would too. This is a flex. Because what do we know about sports in college more so than anything? Like what does it take? What do you need to do to get the best players? Well, it's about recruiting. And whenever you've gotten a bunch of freshmen, McDonald's All-Americans, everything like that, it's great, but there's just such an uncertainty to them. Bay Fall was a McDonald's All-American in high school, but I don't even know if he played more than 5 minutes the entire year. We mentioned KK Robinson, highly regarded player. Didn't really play. So there's just so many times where high school players, they could hit or they could miss. You just never know. So what's been the counter to that? Well, we recently, because of the transfer portal, you've been able to counter that high risk, high reward, guys with great talent, but maybe very raw, or maybe where it actually works out is true freshmen because they're NBA ready. You've countered that with being able to bring in established players from other schools that may or may not have had a high level of success, that may or may not have been really good at where they're at. And you didn't have to develop them. You didn't have to, build them up into the player that they are today. It's more just taking them and placing them into your program. They're already ready to go. They've experienced, they know what it's like, and you just plug them and place them. Again, not saying they all pan out that way, but it's definitely got its own advantages. Where are they the McDonald's All-Americans 5-star player that's going to go to the NBA in the first round next year? Maybe not. Maybe that's not that potential, but they're really good established college basketball players that could step right in and be that experienced dude that they, and most teams, so desperately need. So that could also be the case. But now, with what you have right now, at least with Arkansas, you got both. You got the number 1 transfer class and you got the number 6 recruiting class. There's a lot of times where this seems to be off balance. There's times where if a team has one of the highest ranked recruiting classes, their transfer class may be all right, but it's lower because you focus so much on this. Or the opposite, where you didn't even go for the high school class. You just straight up went for all transfers. I think Muss did that back in the 2021-2022 season, where the only freshman on that team was Chance Moore. But usually it's like, but that was the thing, is like the transfer class was really up here and high, and then you just kind of saw where the recruiting class was for true freshmen and where that was at. So it's all about balance, but to have it right here, the number 1 transfer class and the number 6 recruiting class, it's hard to get much better than that. It's hard to ask for much more than that. Because folks, I'm telling you right now, if you ask me what I'd rather be the higher ranked in between transfer class and recruiting class, give me the transfer class. I'd rather have great, bona fide, solid players right now than have to worry about guys that could end up developing, could end up being great, but could be really raw, really young, really inexperienced and not be ready. So Arkansas at least got the number 1 class with that. But to add in the number 6 class, which just depends on which ranking systems you're looking at and all that, like you have 3 5-stars coming in. So my point in saying all this is that the talent is not going to be the issue. People can say whatever they want about Cal or about, oh, he's going to be first round exit. Bah, bah, bah. Like just yelling about nonsense. Or you can at least look at it and say, all right, unbiased, no Razorback tinted glasses on, no Kentucky tinted glasses on, nothing like that. They are the number 1 transfer class this year, and they are the number 6 recruiting class this year. And also getting, whether you like it or not, a key returning piece in Trevin Brazil That's the team right now. How do you sit back and look at what Cal has done so far and what Cal is going to have on this team next year here at Arkansas and not say that this team has the potential to make a run into the Final Four and possibly compete for a championship? And again, I know all the Kentucky fans are saying that we've heard it before. Good. Because guess what? The things you heard before, they were right. Because you do not realize how tough it is when you get to the tournament to advance in the tournament. You have no idea how tough it is. So I may be crazy here, but if you were going to give me the option of being a team in the NCAA tournament with the best players or a team in the NCAA tournament without the best players, I'm probably going to pick the team that has the best players. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out. Doesn't mean they're always going to win. But that's what I'm going to do, because that's what smart people do. They choose wisely. Again, I don't know the guarantees. I'm not going to put a guarantee on as far as how far they're going to go in the NCAA tournament. If they lost in the first round this first year under Cal, yeah, I'm going to be bummed. I'm going to be disappointed. But again, give me the talent. Give me the most talented or one of the most talented basketball teams to pick to advance into the tournament more so than anybody else. Like Oakland beating Kentucky last year, like that's not something that everybody just knew was going to happen. Oh yeah, Oakland. Yeah, bad matchup. They're definitely it. I'm going to pick them to make a run. Or St. Peter's a few years ago. Nobody said that. Why? Why? Because people who know the game, who watch the games, who know the tournament, there are upsets. But if it comes to your bets, if it comes to your approach, if it comes to who you're banking on, you're going to go with the best teams. Because as great of those upsets and as great of those stories they have been, folks, more often than not, the team that's hoisting the trophy at the end of the season and at the end of the NCAA tournament is not a Cinderella story. It's not. That usually strikes midnight beforehand. Sure, we've seen teams make runs to the Final Four and everything, and that's awesome. It's been fun to watch. But many times, it's been the UConns, the North Carolinas, the Dukes, the Kansases, the Villanovas, the Kentuckys. It's been the teams that have been the best. And sorry, why? Why is that? Why is that? Because they have talent. They put it together. They went on a run. So would you rather, again, ask the question, would you rather have a team that doesn't have the best talent but has cohesiveness from a small town that has the will and the way and the spunk and the confidence and the craziness and grittiness that you want to possibly upset a team? Or do you want the team that's going to have the best players? Cinderella stories are fun, but they always end. The NCAA tournament and national championships, those are won by the best teams. That's just a fact. Speaking of the best teams, folks, get in on BroThrow at BroThrow.com. We've been talking about this here at Natty State Sports, but just as a reminder to everybody that there's a lot going on in the sports world. You may think it's slowed down, but the NBA Finals, I know I've been watching it. It's been pretty entertaining. C's up 2-0. How about that? So maybe you're feeling pretty good about it, right? Maybe you're feeling good and saying, if you're a C's fan, oh yeah, easy money. They're going to sweep the Mavericks. Or maybe you're a Mavericks fan or thinking Mavericks are going to bounce back and have a big game as they return home. Well, if you go to BroThrow.com/Natty, BroThrow.com/Natty, Natty, you can be able to get in on the fun by betting with people of your community, with your friends. And it's a very simple process to do. When you go on there to the web app, you can see exactly what is going to be going on and who you're going to be betting up against and for the amount and what you're betting on. For right now, for instance, if you went on to BroThrow.com/Natty, you could bet on the Mavericks, who are -3 in this game. You could bet on that $25 if you're feeling the Mavericks over Kawhi. I don't think it's Kawhi Leonard, but a man named Kawhi or a lady named Kawhi. I don't judge. But still, they've bet $25 on the Celtics +3 in this game. If you're feeling good about the Mavericks, we'll put down $25 and see how it goes. And you have to pay up. and be honorable because that's the way it goes. And you do it through Venmo. You can do it through the Cash App. You can do it through various ways. And you save a ton of money on the juice with BroThrow. You don't have to worry about all the extra money that goes to the house or anything. BroThrow doesn't do that. If you bet with somebody, if you go up against somebody, it's that money straight up. No questions asked. I've bet quite a few times on BroThrow.com myself, and I've had more success than not, which has been pretty nice. But I have saved a ton of money on the juice. So get after it and get to betting and have some fun with it and bet against your friends. You can also join the Natty State Sports community on BroThrow.com/Natty. It's BroThrow.com/Natty. And you can also enter in the code Natty. But get to betting, have some fun, and join us in the fun at BroThrow.com/Natty. Again, we've been talking about the Razorback basketball team and kind of what's been the best thing about the fun and excitement surrounding it. But I've also just laughed at some of the jokes, I guess, that have been thrown around about Arkansas sports. Like I posted a video today. I wish I could play it, but I'll probably get demonetized. I posted a video today of a reminder, which is like a meme with some music, and of the 2021-2022 season for Razorback sports, especially the big three. Because as we did a show on a few days ago, this past year may have been the worst of any Razorback Big Three sports academic year ever, at least of my lifetime. You had a losing record in football and in basketball, and you had a very epically disappointing finish in baseball. So you can make that argument that it was the worst. And the reason I posted that video was not to troll, was not to make people feel worse about everything, nothing like that. The reason I posted that video, folks, is because I want to remind everybody and send that reminder to everybody that you are not far removed from greatness. Yes, this past year sucked. And it's always about what have you done for me lately? But folks, that 2021-2022 year, you know how many years ago that was? 2. 2 full years ago when that happened. And you had it going. Football went 9-4, beat Texas, rushed the field. You went 4-4 in SEC play. You finally beat Texas A&M after that long losing streak. You had an epic game against Mississippi State at home. You gave Alabama all they wanted. You put Ole Miss to the brink. You beat Missouri, which was nice. And then you had a really good showing and an awesome bowl game you hadn't played in, and the Outback Bowl in Tampa in perfect weather on January 1st. That was awesome, especially considering where you came from. Then in basketball, you actually, for a change, had a good regular season. You had a chance in the final game of the SEC season to have a share of the SEC title. I think he actually ended up finishing tied for second or maybe tied for third, but in the tiebreaker ended up fourth. But still, you had a great season. So much so that you were rewarded with a high seed to go along with it, too. You had a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And you went to the Elite Eight. You had an epically close game against Vermont up in Buffalo. And then you had a really ugly, nasty defensive battle against New Mexico State and Chris Jans. They're up in Buffalo, too. And then you went out to San Francisco to face the number 1 Gonzaga team, that team that had an NBA draft lottery pick, second pick overall, and Chet Holmgren. Team that was number 1 in college basketball in total offensive points per game and defensive points per game. They were number 1, beating everybody. It was a home court feel to it because their fans traveled down and everything, and you beat them. And Jim Nance, man, that call that he had on that still gives me goosebumps. I don't know the exact number, but it's like Fayetteville is 1,838 miles away, but the call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco. Like, that's why he's the best in the business. And seeing the celebrations and everything, it was awesome. And that same year, too, by the way, I didn't mention this, but you beat number 1 Auburn and rushed the court, and that was a fun game, and the memes afterwards was awesome. Then in baseball, you had a pretty rough regular season, rough by Arkansas standards, and you kind of really just limped into the end of the season and into the SEC tournament. You lost your final 3 SEC series. You went 0-2 in barbecue in the SEC tournament, and you didn't even get a top 16 seed. You had to be a 2 seed over in Stillwater going up against a loaded Oklahoma State team. Well, what'd you do? You won. In some of the most epic and incredibly fun type of baseball games and atmospheres, you won that regional. And then you went on the road to Chapel Hill in North Carolina and swept them. Won in a walk-off. Brady Slavens hitting that one and sending you to Omaha. And then you went into Omaha, and I guess technically you finished 3rd. Wanted to win it all. Hate that Ole Miss won it, but you were there. Folks, that was a great year. That was a great year. Having that much fun and thinking about the future of all your programs. And then this past year happened. Now, there's 2 different ways you can look at this, folks. You can look at it as, well, yeah, it shows that we don't have the right leadership. We've had problems. We've done dumb things. We've had bad decisions, and it wasn't as good as what we thought. And it's come crumbling down, and it's just going to get worse until, major things changes, fire 100-year check. Like you could go through a lot of those like really intense, crazy ideas and feelings. Or you can look at it in a more optimistic lens, like I usually do. And here would be my optimism. That year was just 2 years ago. If anything, that shows you that things can change on a dime. Things can change quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because if you go back to the previous 2 years, I know the season was technically shortened because of COVID and everything, but football, they're coming off a 2019 year where Chad Morris was fired and it was horrible and you hired Sam Pittman. That was horrible. Basketball, you weren't going to make the NCAA tournament. You won 20 games, but you were 11th in the SEC. And your tournament, you didn't. We'll never know for sure, but I would bet dollars to donuts that you weren't going to be an NCAA tournament team that year, but it was the first year under Muss, and you at least had some promise and some progress. And then baseball, which we really didn't get to see. Who knows what could have happened? You had Heston Kjerstad, but I remember in the beginning part of it, the pitching was a problem, and there was a lot of uncertainty about that, where Arkansas was supposed to be a good team, and they struggled in that. So who knows what that would have happened. But all I'm saying is that potentially, though, could have been looked at as a really bad year. Fired your football coach, got Chad Morris out. You hired Sam Pittman, who was unproven. Basketball, you would have missed out on the NCAA tournament. And baseball, who knows? Like, there's no reason. It wasn't like that team was just wrecking shop. Heston Kjerstad probably would have won the Golden Spikes. In fact, I wanted to deem him the Golden Spikes winner that year because he was having such a great start. But other than that, it's kind of like, oof. Didn't really know what to think of it all. But I say all that to say this, that was 2 years prior to that 2 years ago that you had that was so great. Things can change quickly in the world of sports. And because of transfer portal and because of NIL and because of all of that, I know you hate it. A lot of you do. But it can also be a quick, fast, easy way to turn the tide, to change the narrative, to make everything come together and be great once again. Now, I don't know what this upcoming year will hold for Arkansas. I really don't. I don't know if it's going to be across the board awesome or across the board great, but I will say this. The potential is there. I think football will be much more improved this year. You got Bobby Petrino, man. You got a good home schedule. You got a good thing going. You got some good players that replace some of the players that you needed, and there's potential that it could at least be an entertaining season. I'm not going to predict 9-10 wins, but there's potential there to be better, to be improved. Basketball, geez, need I say more? I don't think there's any doubt you're going to be improved. If the talent and the coaching and everything comes together with Calipari, there's a chance that you could be one of the best teams, win the SEC this year, be the number 1 overall seed. There is that potential. On paper, it looks like it could be. as we just talked about, the number 1 class transferred, the number 6 class in recruiting. There's your evidence of it. Could be that. You could make to the Final Four. And then in baseball, I know the frustrations had from this past year, and you got a lot of turnover. But as we know, baseball is always going to be really good, and they do a great job in the regular season, but that's not what matters. But what does matter is postseason. And if Dave Van Horn makes the right tweaks, does the right things offensively, be able to get to where he needs it to be, I don't see there's any reason to believe that. Like if he told me that Arkansas made the College World Series again next year in baseball, would you be surprised? I wouldn't. So that's my point. As much as this past year sucked, and it did, it can quickly turn around, back in your favor, back making you enjoy and appreciate being a Razorback fan once again. I know it's tough to do it at times, especially this past year, but things can change quickly. It's not all for naught. No, it's not always the darkness before the dawn. I think you can start getting excited and start believing that this year is going to be a year, who knows, maybe just as good as 2022 and 2023, or 2021, 2022, but potentially could be even better. And that's a fact. I want to tell you folks that something that's always better is Alumni Hall. Our friends at Alumni Hall, it's the ultimate Razorback shopping experience, and they do it all. They have it all. If you're a Razorback fan and you want to have the apparel, you want to have the decor, you want to have everything humanly possible to be able to make this thing work as a Razorback fan and represent your team with pride, Alumni Hall is your place. You could shop them online at nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. That's nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. When you go with them, they are going to take care of you in the best way possible because they have everything. The high-end stuff. We're talking about Johnny O. We're talking about Peter Millar, Nike, Columbia. They have the best shirts, most comfortable shirts. They got polos. They got T-shirts. They got jerseys. They got things for the women, things for the kids, things for the pets. They have it all. It's incredible. If you walk into their store at 3417 North College Avenue, you are blown away, absolutely blown away by all the great things that they have in store for you. And when you go in there, tell them that the boys from Natty State Sports sent you. Tell them that. You know, they'll probably be like, yeah, we hate those guys. No, I'm just kidding. We have a great partnership with them. But, you know, I know that they'll appreciate it, and I know we'll appreciate it. And they're great people over there at Alumni Hall. Huge Razorback fans. And, again, we appreciate them being a part of the tornado relief that we did last week. Really awesome stuff. So support them. Check them out again today at nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. That's nattystatesports.com/alumni hall.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, everybody, it's time for the final segment here on the John Nabors Show. It's the Hey, Did Y'all See This segment, and it is brought to you by Hopper Termite and Pest Control. We know that Hopper is the best in the business when it comes to getting rid of all the pets that infest and can infest your home. I mean, they're not called pests for no reason. I mean, they are just that, pests. And it's no matter if it's like rodents or roaches or mosquitoes, any of those things, they can destroy your property and can create a lot of health problems for your family. You don't want that. Nobody wants that. And it is that time of year. So thankfully, to the great people over at Hopper Termite and Pest Incorporated, they have a tried and true solution to be able to help you out. Their pest control program eradicates many common pests and works for many weeks before it needs to be reapplied, and it even lasts through the rain. So anytime that you have the weather come in and it be a factor into the rain, don't worry about it, folks, because it's going to hold up strong because they're the best in the business and they're able to take care of business there. No matter if it's fleas, ticks, wasps, cockroaches, rodents, centipedes, spiders, no matter what it is, they take care of it. So call them today at 479-750-4070. That's 479-750-4070. You can also visit their website at callhopper.com. But when you do call them, be sure to mention Natty. Use the code Natty, N-A-T-T-Y, and you'll get $50 off your very first service. So give them a call today and be able to get rid of all those things that annoy you the most with Call Hopper at Hopper Termite Pest and Control. And it is at 479-750-4070. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the things that always crack me up. Which here's the deal. I like to do this segment sometimes every day. Sometimes it kind of varies just depending on what's been going on in the landscape of the world. Because I don't know, it's always very funny to me of seeing funny stories that have nothing to do with Arkansas and kind of getting around it. But let's start with this. Joey Chestnut You guys remember Joey Chestnut, right? The guy who is big on the hot dogs and eating them and doing it in a very fast manner. Well, this is according to New York Post. This came out today. He has won the July 4th Nathan's hot dog eating competition all the time. I don't think anybody can stop him. He's the best. But he's out of this year over a deal he made to represent a different wiener brand. And it's not just any brand, but Impossible Foods, which recently launched a vegan Frankfurter imposter made from plants. A source said Joey Chestnut was paid $200,000 to appear in the Nathan's contest last year and was offered $1.2 million, a 4-year contract going forward. MLE said, "We are devastated to learn that Joey Chestnut has chosen to represent a rival brand that sells plant-based hot dogs rather than competing in the 2024 Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest." MLE and Nathan's went to great lengths to accommodate Joey and his management team, agreeing to the appearance fee and allowing Joey to compete in a rival unbranded hot dog eating contest on Labor Day. Wow. As it says. Yeah, that's craziness. Isn't it funny, though, that like eating competitions happen all the time, daily even. I mean, some of them, not all of them are televised. Not all of them are discussed in the same way that we do with the hot dog eating contest here in the month of July and then July 4th, like this one is. But they happen all the time. But the only time that we care about them or even remotely pay attention is this particular contest, the Nathan's hot dog eating competition. But to have it happen this way, there's always been some controversy around it, right? Of course, now I just forgot his name. The other guy that was big into the hot dog eating contest, the guy from, I believe, he had a crazy wild name. But now, see, it's going to bother me. That's going to bother me. So I apologize. But anyways, he had the controversy where he was like banned for life from all of it. I'm going to look it up right here in the middle of the show. I don't even care. Because that was a huge ordeal. Because we know it was not just Joey Chestnut. But what was that guy's name? I'm sure a lot of you are like yelling at me and getting all mad. Kobayashi, thank you. How did I forget that? That is embarrassing. I am so sorry, folks. Because that is one of my, it's also a great line from Step Brothers. It's like, my guy here, he's going to eat your, you know what, like Kobayashi, blah, 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 like that. Man, I can't believe I forgot that. So that was stupid, but I had to find out before I kept going. Anyways, that was like with him, and he got banned from it, and they couldn't agree to terms and all that, but or at least that's what was reported, that he was banned. But this is a whole new thing. Like, this is Joey Chestnut we're talking about. This guy is as important as anybody when it comes to the hot dog eating competition. So crazy story here. And of course it comes down to money. But the fact that Chestnut was paid $200,000 to appear in the Nathan's contest last year and then was offered a $1.2 million 4-year contract moving forward. I don't know what the going rate is for eating competitions and how much these guys get paid, but that seems like a pretty good chunk of change that, hey, I'm not a vegan. I probably would not eat a vegan Frankfurter made from plants compared if I had a hot dog, but shoot, they're paying me $1.2 million. I may learn to love it. So hopefully this controversy can get settled and figured out before we move on and getting into the Nathan's hot dog eating competition. How about this story? A California teacher was arrested for a DUI, child endangerment, to face no charges. Quote, "It is not illegal to teach drunk." How about that? So, as it's explained here, the way the story goes is that a fellow staff member reported that they believed this second grade teacher was teaching drunk, and the investigation began. The investigation went on for several months, and while they cannot determine if the teacher drove to work drunk or if she became drunk at the school, one thing they have concluded is that her blood alcohol content level was 2 times the legal limit while she was teaching second graders. Second graders are 7 to 8 years old. She was twice the drinking limit, the legal drinking limit. And what is crazy about it is that she's not going to be charged because of the Sutter County District illegal to teach drunk. I certainly don't support anyone teaching drunk, but I can't charge anyone criminally. You know, that's one of those things where once I read it, I'm like, yeah, I guess. Because there's like certain things, like for instance, this job that I do, talking to all of y'all and spouting nonsense like I do. if I was to do this hammered, I guess it's not against the law. Or you all may have some jobs that if you were hammered while doing them, maybe you wouldn't do them as good. Maybe you wouldn't be focused, or who knows, depending on the job, you may do it better when you're drunk. But I think that even if that was the case, this is a little bit different when you're dealing with kids. You know, I feel like that probably should be something that's illegal. I wouldn't want my kid's teacher to be drunk. I mean, I guess she can still be fired, and hopefully she was, and she needed to be. But I don't know, like maybe it's not, maybe it shouldn't be a criminal charge. I'm sure everybody's having their thoughts and opinions on this, but my overall art in this is like, how is that just something you say? It's not illegal to teach drunk, but I certainly don't support it, but it's not illegal. So how did it get to this point anyways? How did it get to court? Like, what was the thing going on? I don't know. I feel like this could have been something that didn't have to go to court if it's that clear cut and simple. Like, it's not illegal. But still, she should be fired. And I don't know, maybe that's something that should be looked into, that if you're drunk or if you're high or whatever and you're teaching young kids, then you probably need to have some sort of punishment for that. I don't know if y'all did this too, but I kind of look back and I'm like, I think that maybe some of my teachers when I was a kid may have been drunk or on drugs. It's like you may not know it as a kid, but then you start thinking about it. I was like, they were a little weird, a little loopy. There was a day that, you know, the teacher came in and suddenly they had to leave early for no reason, but they were acting weird, you know, things like that. So anyways, it's not illegal for those of you know out there. So if you are one of those people that watch this and you are a teacher and you get hammered in front of the second graders, just know, hey, precedent's been set. It's not illegal, but you'll probably get fired. How about this story? A missing woman was found eaten alive by a massive python after locals cut her body out of a snake in Indonesia. You know, there's a lot of ways that I would not want to go off out of this world and moving on into eternity. But I would feel like being eaten by a massive python while alive is really high up there on my list of ways I don't want to go. I'm not going to sit here and try to get too much into it to try to gross y'all out, but dude, I could not imagine this. Could not imagine the suffering and the horribleness. She was 45 years old. She went missing Thursday night. Her body was discovered inside a reticulated python by her husband on Friday in residents of the village. They said the search began. Missing mother of four began after she failed to return home. Her husband found her belongings, which made him suspicious. The villagers then searched the area. They soon spotted a python with a large belly. They agreed to cut open the python's stomach, and as soon as they did, her head was visible. Jeez, dude, that is so screwed up. That is terrible. That is awful. But that's like the worst way to go. I just couldn't imagine. Could not imagine. That's why I hate snakes. And I don't think that there's any pythons that could eat somebody alive fully here in the United States, or at least here in Arkansas. But I don't care if it's a garden snake. I ain't touching. I ain't getting around to it. Whew, terrible story. Well, on a lighter note, but also this is something I feel very strongly about. So this was a video that was made by some, you want to call him an influencer or whatever it is. But they had a video where they were talking to Charles Barkley as he was walking in. It was a Mavericks fan. And he was going after Charles Barkley and was talking to him and had this to say.
The guy with no championship rings. He sucked at basketball. 0 rings. He had 0 rings. You're Jordan's son. Imagine not winning an NBA championship. It was the guy that has no championship rings that just won. Yeah, he has no rings.
Okay, let's be very clear about something. I am not Charles Barkley in any sort. And I know that when you are in a particular space, and especially if you're someone who is well known, who someone is famous, or someone who is, out there in the ether of media, whatever you want to call it, you're going to hear from a lot of people that either love you or hate you. I mean, even in my very, very small scale, of the business that I'm in, I get people who tweet at me pretty horrible things and chat says horrible things, whatever. But the one thing I haven't had, knock on wood, is a real negative, like majorly negative interaction with anybody in person. So I'm thankful for that. But I have always felt like there should be a law, something put into place where if somebody did this, like what this guy did, I don't care what Charles Barkley said about your team or what he did, but there should be a law, I believe, that if you do this, you go up to the face, you're filming it to get the clicks, and you're trolling somebody or you're ripping them and you're trying to be confrontational like this guy was. If Charles Barkley was the rear back and hit him, there should be no charges filed against Charles Barkley. In fact, he should be rewarded. I feel strongly about that. Because if you're going to, like, it's one thing to just, if you're drunk and doing it, like, I know that there's always going to be certain situations, but like, if you're truly doing it to just be on video and to try to post it and try to get everybody, like, your influence and try to get everybody to watch it and to, bring up the content and everything, I feel like Charles Barkley should absolutely be in his right to rear back and smack you. And whatever happens after that, it's, hey, let's go the several ways. It's perfectly within his right. I feel like a lot of this would go away. Like if there was a federal law put into place that was said, okay, if you do this thing under these conditions and the person that you're doing it to rears back and physically assaults you in a way, then it is within his right. I firmly believe you'd see a lot of that stop. But that's ridiculous. That's stupid. I don't care, again, what he said about your team. If you're going to be man enough to go up into his face, knowing that he's not going to do anything because of his status and what would happen if he did, I think he should be allowed to. Because I'm telling you right now, that little kid or whatever, he absolutely and in no way would have done that if he knew that there was a law in place that would allow Charles Barkley to go back, rear back, and give him one right in his suckhole. He would not even think about that. So, anyways, I'm on Team Charles Barkley for that one. That was pretty rough, and I kind of feel bad for Charles doing that. He's getting paid millions of dollars, though. I think he'll be just fine. Well, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the John Nabors Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Natty State Sports across the board on our YouTube page, as well as all of our social media accounts. We're always putting out some content there, as well as on our website at nattystatesports.com. You can check out the QR code. I guess it's over here. There it is. The QR code if you want to be able to support us here at Natty State Sports. And for the merchandise that we have new shirts, we have hats, we have everything that can help support the cause. And also, if any of you are businesses here in the state of Arkansas or across the country, and you want to partner with us, we would love to have you on board. All you got to do is just email. Just email sales@nattystatesports.com. That's sales@nattystatesports.com. Email that, and let's partner up. Let's get it going. Let's have some fun. We love all of our partners here today and throughout our time here at Natty State Sports, and we want to continue to help out your business as much as possible. So get with us, and we'll see what we can take from it. But again, appreciate all of you listening in and watching in. Same sports show, same sports channel. Tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your evening, folks. We will see you then.